A startling statistic out of Chicago this morning. Gun violence in that city hit a 21-year high for the month of May. It's a troubling trend that is mirrored in other cities across the country. The emergency room physician, Dr. Robert Gore, got tired of treating young black men for gun-related injuries on his operating tables in Chicago and New York City. So in 2011, he took matters into his own hands and created the Kings Against Violence Initiative in Brooklyn, New York. Its aim is to give at-risk youth alternatives to acting out violence in the streets. The weekly workshops and activities take place in hospitals, schools, and in the community, centering on such life skills as crisis management, identity exploration, and critical thinking. Dr. Gore joins us via FaceTime from New York to tell us more. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Still here on our panel is Dr. Cleo Manago and Yolanda King. So, Doctor, could you tell me about the inspiration for creating your program?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn in the 80s and 90s, and, for many of us, that was the crack cocaine era. And we saw a lot of aspects of violence related to the drug wars. But then, fast forward a number of years, I leave Brooklyn and go to Atlanta for undergrad at Morehouse, and still seeing a lot of the same stuff going on in the Southwest Atlanta. But then things started changing, in medical school and definitely in residency in Chicago, where not only am I just observing this stuff, but I'm also treating these patients. And when you see things over and over and over again, there are a couple of things that can happen. One, you can become numb to the situation, or you can see, okay, what else is there? Okay, there has to be a different way. And I started lecturing and more research about violence intervention, but not, I want to do it beyond the Band-Aid approach. And there were a number of other hospital-based intervention programs that were out there. And so I started researching them. I started looking at what was done effectively, what they thought needed some improvement, but also what kind of kept me and some of my knucklehead friends out of trouble while we were growing up. And over a period of time, we started putting together what eventually became the CABI program to work with youth who were affected by violence, as well as families who were affected by violence.
So this program sounds really exciting, and my question is, are you planning to scale this? I mean, there are communities all over the country in which, young people would benefit from this type of program, and there's just not so for example, in rural areas, there may not be proper psychologists and psychiatrists on staff to handle these sorts of issues and even build this kind of program. So how could you scale your program out?
Well, that's a great question. One of the things we're doing right now, we've already expanded our program to a number of schools in Brooklyn, New York. So we have 4 high schools and 1 junior high school, in addition to our work in the emergency department. Part of it is just to kind of have the dialogue, find out places where you have points of contact, where you understand the local culture, to see what way we can implement a best practices approach. I've been reading some books about business development, and they were talking about 2 things. They were talking about the McDonald's model and the Chinese restaurant model. When you go to McDonald's anywhere in the United States or around the world, it looks the same, regardless of the environment. When you go to a Chinese restaurant around the United States, the food is going to be very similar, but the ambiance is going to be catered depending on the socioeconomic status. And we've got to make sure that anytime you implement a program, that it's going to fit in with the local culture, the local leadership, so that it's palatable and people will wind up utilizing it to the best of your abilities or their abilities.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
What are the protective factors or the nuances of your program that has resulted apparently in transformation among these young men? What are the key factors that has led from them going in one direction to another?
Okay, that's a great question. Actually, we also work with young women too. I have to shout that out. We have a dynamic team. One of the biggest things is being in a position where young people can be heard. When you've experienced trauma, whether you've experienced it directly, whether it's verbal, whether it's physical, whether it's something going on in your family, many people are hurting. And there's a common statement, hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
So looking at the behavioral health aspects, looking at creating and fostering an environment where young people are comfortable talking about their pain and their traumas so that a lot more healing can take place. Now, a lot of our workshops deal with mediation and conflict resolution, and we believe, at least for the workshops for our school and community-based programs, that's just part of the solution. being in a space where you have the workshops, it creates an environment where now young people participate in activities, but now they feel comfortable and they start to develop a common bond with the facilitators, with our program directors, with our site directors, so that if something traumatic does occur, or if there's been some stuff that's been kept in for a long period of time, then they feel comfortable with the people that work with us to discuss these issues. And then you've got, that's the real important part, making sure that they're in a position to be heard.
I noticed the word critical thinking in an earlier description of your work. What are they critically thinking about? What are they unpacking?
Well, how do you respond to conflict? You know, violence has been around for a long period of time. So has conflict. Whether you need to solve this conflict as a result of violent behavior, or it can be solved with words, or it can be solved with walking away, or figuring out another avenue to explore your reasons for engaging in a situation. One of the key things that's come up is that a lot of young people and older people, we can't even just talk about this as just one population, but they have two emotions. They know angry and they know happy. And so if you're not happy in a situation, then the only thing you can be is angry. You're not thinking about being, reflective. You're not thinking about being sad. Yourself, all these other emotions. And when you're angry, it's imperative that you respond with aggression.
Doctor, we want to thank you for all the work that you're doing for saving our children, both boys and girls, and we hope that we are able to sort of replicate you all across the country, because we certainly need your help.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. News 1 Now with Roland Martin, every weekday morning at 7 on TV 1.